Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for asking me. I'm happy to answer these questions for you. The first question was, what made me want to make puppets? I am not sure what the first inspiration for it was because in the 60s there were some marionette action shows that were pretty cool. One was Thunderbirds, I believe it was. Thunderbirds are go.
One. Thunderbirds are go.
And Fireball XL5.
Okay, Venus?
Okay, Steve.
Right. Let's go.
Supercar was another one. Hilarious theme to that one.
Supercar, supercar, with beauty and grace, as swift as can be. Watch it flying through the air. It travels in space or under the sea, and it can journey anywhere. Supercar.
I used to watch Shari Lewis religiously as a little kid. She used to have a TV show, I think before I was born. She used to make puppets. Of course, she made her own, lamb chop and all of those. And that was a huge inspiration.
Jingle, jingle bells, jingle, jingle bells, jingle, jingle, jingle bells, jingle, jingle, jingle bells, jingle, jingle, jingle all the way, jingle, jingle bells, jingle, jingle. Oh, what fun!
But luckily for us as kids, we lived in Oakland, California, where there was a great little park, and I believe it's still there, called Children's Fairyland. And it's a theme-based amusement park, I guess you could call it. It's based on mostly, I guess, nursery rhymes, but there's a puppet theater there that I used to go with my grandmother to go see. My brother and sister and my grandmother and I would go watch the marionette show presented by Louis Malman, a very well-known and extremely talented and so friendly puppeteer. Really a great guy. He just passed away a few years ago. I would say that experience at Children's Fairyland was probably the biggest influence in convincing me that that was something that I wanted to do, to make puppets. So I made my first ventriloquist figure probably in 1970 or 71 or so. It was essentially it's essentially a block of wood with a mouth. So a block of wood cut in two. A block of wood and a smaller block of wood. And then I would just make them talk. I hinged the back of him and it was hilarious. Blockhead, I'm sure, was his name. I guess my attempts were so pitiful, perhaps, that in 1972-ish, I got a Mortimer Snerd store-bought figure for Christmas. And I was thrilled, of course. And I also got to see how the works were, at least in this cheap version of Mortimer Snerd. It was just very simple rubber band mechanism and a hinge. That was my first ventriloquist figure, but that came much later than the puppets. Puppets I've just been into since I was a very little kid, and I think that the Children's Fairyland is the influence for that. Okay, that's too long of an answer. Next, have you made any puppets for anyone who became famous? No. I have made a portrait puppet of the rock icon, 70s icon, Todd Rundgren, and I have made puppets for a number of shows, other theaters, you know, like the producers, the Nazi pigeon puppets, and the giant puppets for Child's Christmas in Wales that they did in Oakland, in El Cerrito, California. And I did do some puppets for a web series called Felt High. But I wouldn't say that any of those were famous performers. But who knows? I don't know actually who all is involved with these productions that these puppets go to, so I'm not really sure. I did make a ventriloquist figure for an episode of Z Nation, and I got to play the ventriloquist too.
We have a very special guest.
Senor Diablo and his zombie friend, Petito. Good luck.
It sort of pokes fun at the unfortunate observation that ventriloquists are about as popular as mimes among the common folk. And your final question, how do you think that ventriloquism can benefit the community, is a very interesting question. I've never really thought about that. Like any art, it benefits the community. It's especially for the artist, I think, in this case. The kids, especially young people that have found their art, found that there is something that lights them up, like making puppets, ventriloquism, the idea of throwing your voice. I know had a great appeal to me when I first heard that phrase. It sounded like actual magic, you know, and belly talkers and all of that. And I think that the benefit to the community is that art opens people up, especially young people, of course. When there is no art, there's no discovery of what your passion is, then life is very different. It's not necessarily bad. I suppose there are people that go through their entire lives without finding what their passion is, the thing that really lights them up. So they just go to a day-to-day pencil pushing job, perhaps. But look at us, how lucky we are to experience a number of different kinds of art in terms of performance or creating things, or making things, costuming. I know that you're certainly versatile in your expressions of art. So I think that the benefit to the community is uncountable. I think it's immense, and it's absolutely uncountable, and it works on the benefit is on an individual basis for the artist that's discovered what their passion is, and also for the audience, of course, that the only reason for doing an art like ventriloquism is to give people joy. And of course that's going to benefit the community. So I hope that helps, and that those are adequate answers to your questions, and that you get an A+ on your project.